need to commute to see family. So I think that's one of the reasons why they introduced it.
Okay.
We are rolling, so whenever you're ready.
We're rolling now. We're in.
Locked in.
You don't need to change anything. We just keep doing. We just keep rolling. That's it. We're in. Episode 1, Bear Chat.
This is it.
How are you feeling? We just spoke about 25 minutes on the train about what we're going to speak about and stuff. Have we just wasted all that? Should we talk about all that again, or should we?
Yeah. Or the initial idea of not having a name and just rolling with it.
Yeah, we'll get onto that at the end. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so welcome. How you feeling?
Good. Excited for what's ahead and what's going to come out of the conversation today as well.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a practice run, didn't we? When you were back last time, we were in here. We did it was basically like a practice run, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah. Invited over and we sat in this very room and had a chat, and it was interesting, some of the stuff that we spoke about. Some of the things I couldn't remember or recall at the time because we was that deep in the conversation.
Yeah.
But looking back and listening back, it was nice.
And there was no intent to start this project. We were just in doing something else.
Yeah.
And I came out of there and I knew my lass said to me when we left here, she was like, that was amazing. And I came out of there feeling that the conversation was so relaxed and it flowed so well. This just seemed like such a no-brainer. But yeah, all right. So let's do a little intro, I think, for the people who don't know who we are.
Yes.
I want to keep this short and snappy, to the point, because as we discussed on the way in, this project isn't about us as hosts or co-hosts. This is about the project itself and the conversations we're going to be having. So yeah, a little bit about me. So my name's Jacky. I'm a former DJ, producer, entrepreneur now. I come from the Northeast, lived down south for quite some time now. Met a girl, she said, fucking move down south or you can fuck off. So I did. And I've been down here for, a good part of a decade now, and I love it. I live just outside of town. Yeah, married, got a dog, and did a project before this, the Afters Cast, which I did with Sean, which was great. We spoke to, the majority of people we spoke to were music producers, artists, DJs. We had people on we had a fertility dietitian, we had Ron. We spoke to a lot of people, but there was a heavy focus on music, which was kind of part of the project, in terms of the name and everything. But what I learned about that project, which we wrapped up at 20 episodes, was having conversations about, I don't know where to say the word taboo, but topics that people don't normally talk about was really insightful. And I learned a lot about myself as well as learning about other people's journeys and the traits of successful people and all these things. But it was just interesting to learn so much about yourself without the intent to. I've said this previously, but it was like therapy by proxy. We sat down uninterrupted for 45 minutes, an hour, and it was a real big learning curve for me. And when we had a conversation when you were back a few weeks ago, and we did a little practice run, it just seemed to fall into place. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and what's got to me to this point. On to you, mate.
My name's Pete Anwar. Obviously, we were friends, you said on the last show, I believe, 8 years now.
2016.
16, okay.
8 years. Yeah.
And again, the whole thing about time and compression of time, it's insane. But yeah, we've been friends for that time. And where I'm currently at, I now live on the island of Ibiza, originally from Manchester. 44 years of age now, ticking on. Very, very similar story. Been married, been with my now wife for 25 years. We also have a dog and 3 cats, so a little bit of a gang. And we live out on the island of Ibiza. And in terms of my profession, career, entrepreneur, been involved in business, now investor, and looking at other projects, currently being on the journey and path of recovery over the past couple of years, which has been interesting for me. Wider learning of the self and different perspective. Lots of books, lots of podcasts, and I find myself in London with you, and we have a conversation, and then we're sat here again now. So from my side, a journey that's continuing, and we see where it goes. But very excited for the conversation that's ahead and some of the things that we're going to be up for discussion and subject matter, and let's see where we roll with it.
Yeah, it was interesting when you were back last time, and you said you were thinking about doing a podcast for a while, and you had some name ideas, and you weren't sure when you were going to hit the ground running with it, but you were thinking about it. Then everything kind of fell into place with this. So that kind of leads us on to the project itself. You know, what's Bear Chat? What's it about? I'll let you start with this, because we've obviously talked about it. But what's because I think we have very similar visions for the project, but maybe probably different in certain areas. So you start if you like.
I mean, we're going to brush over it towards the back end of this conversation as well, I think, from what we mentioned before. But obviously the name Bear Chat had to evolve and change in the last 24 hours. We'll go into more detail about that later on. Yeah. Again, in the gym this morning, letting things ruminate and our thoughts progress, and agreement was met on the name Bear Chat. And for me, it's kind of raw. It's everything that we're going to be doing. Bearing the conversation, bearing ourself, our soul, or however you want to position it. And chat is, in particular, a northern thing. It might even be a UK thing, I'm not sure. But I know that, where I grew up, what are you chatting about? In school, I'm just chatting. And that's really what we're going to be doing. So it's kind of keeping it real simple and at its core and at its essence. And let's see where we go from there. But it was interesting. I was flying over from Ibiza, and we dropped a couple of messages. And when I landed, it was like, I need to change it, Pete. We need to.
Well, you were in the air because I was in the air. You sent me a screenshot of something. Yes. We will talk about it at some point. There'll be a right time to mention what it was supposed to be called. You sent me a screenshot, and it was the name of the podcast that I decided, and I was like, shit. So I looked on. It didn't really look like they had much reaction or many views. And I was like, I don't think it's a threat. There's not much connection. You said, oh, maybe I was looking at the subject matter and it made sense. And then I was like, okay, I'll go back. And I kind of saw what you meant. There was a couple of artists on there. And then I started to think, let's just go onto Instagram and let's just see if the name's available to get. So I put the name in, how I saw it, and how I started the designer. Sorry, Lee, he's having to redesign everything now. But redesign the logo. And anyway, I put the name in to, this is gone. And I was like, fuck this. So go back to Instagram and just put it in and see what it is. Yeah. And it was exactly what we're doing with exactly the same sort of people. I was like, of course it wasn't original. Every single fucking name's taken. Yeah. But I actually do think it was meant to be, because we went to the gym this morning. We had a chat last night. Nothing was coming out. We were whacking stuff around. Nothing was really resonating. And then we did that circuit session. And then I was stood on the treadmill, walking on the treadmill, and you started firing ideas back and forth. And it came, and it just made so much sense. The bear element for me is also related to, as in feeling bare, vulnerability for sure. I feel that that's something that's not frowned upon, but people shy away from showing vulnerability, whether it's in conversation with friends or family, or whether it's to do with weaknesses they have that they're shy, that they're maybe afraid to talk about, or just showing vulnerability in general in life is, it could be seen as taboo, and I don't think it needs to be. That's something I learned a lot in the previous project that I did, that sat talking to someone who, and maybe knew, but didn't know them that well. You haven't got your phone, you're not distracted, and you're letting the barriers down. And you come out, you feel like a weight off, which is why I think this is like therapy. But I think talking about these vulnerable areas of your life, no matter what, is important to get that. What did you say? You characterize it on the train as, is it taking off a stone vest or something? I can't know what you
taking
said.
Some bricks off your back. So lightening the load. Yeah. And that's and it gets one of them things that I've been learning over recent years, which we'll brush over and we'll go into more detail as we progress. But yeah, definitely shedding some skin, peeling back the layers of the onion, however you want to phrase it is. But in particular for me, taking the bricks off your back, just lightening the load.
And that's how it felt. That's how it felt on a few occasions where I've come out the conversation and I've gone, fuck, I hadn't even spoke to my wife about that, or friends, and I've just come out and had a 45-minute conversation with someone I've probably seen 3 years ago, and I feel amazing. I feel closer to that person. I feel more of a connection. I feel physically lighter.
There's a release.
There's a release of some description.
For sure.
And that's beautiful. And we all need to know that it's okay to do that. You know, I almost was in tears in one of the episodes, but that's a release of, that's a, what do they call it? And, when you do ayahuasca, there's purge. It's a purge. So in ayahuasca, when you do an ayahuasca ceremony, there's different types of purge. The one that, if people have heard of ayahuasca, the main one is being sick. You're physically purging, vomiting up, which you know, it could be all sorts of trauma or whatever. But there's all sorts of purge. You can yawn, you can laugh, you can cry. It's the tears. This is a release of energy. And I felt that massively in those conversations. And I know even when we leave today, even though this is an introduction talk about the project, I'm going to feel lighter, even if it's a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah,
Talking.
well, the 12-step program that I've been involved in over the past couple of years in the fellowship, my home group obviously is based in Ibiza, but I've been to gatherings, meetings within that, the circle of NA as a whole, and that's exactly what it is. It's global, it's everywhere. I've been to Cape Town, Madrid, Valencia, Manchester. I'm going to be London later on today. That's exactly what it is. It's a conversation, just open. And similar to what you just said, which is sticking in my mind, is, you know, I had a conversation with my sponsor, and I'd not had a conversation like that with my wife.
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah.
I'd not had a conversation like that with my best friend for 20 years. Not even really spoke to my mum. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes them conversations that you have, and obviously ayahuasca, I know about. There's treatment centres in South America. You know, one that Gabor Mate has been to, the Temple of the Way of Light.
Yeah.
All have a purpose of healing and you know, working on themselves, but just the conversation of sitting with another human being and being comfortable to be vulnerable. And letting that out.
Yeah, comfortable being vulnerable, because that's such a catch-22.
Exactly.
But
it's in the moment.
It's important. It's important to put yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is. In all aspects of life, whether it's in conversation, whether it's physically going to like an NA meeting and being there. You don't want to be there at the start. A lot of people go, they feel so much resistance to it.
There's a fear element there. It's fearful of the unknown.
Yeah.
I've never been here.
You spoke to me about this on the train. You said I'll let you say it. You were at work.
So the very first time that I walked into the room, it was in the back of San Antonio in Ibiza, and my therapist recommended to attend the meeting. Just recommended, didn't tell me or direct me, just recommended. And I went. If my wife or my mother or anybody close to me would have said that, I would have instantly put a barrier up, because I would have felt like I was like maybe a failure, or just that whole inner voice of, you know, being, you know, just not being the person that they see me as I normally am. Yeah. Anyway, I went in there and, you know, we sat down, and all of a sudden the conversations that flowed, and I just sat and listened. And then I was conversing. I came out of that room, and that's why the analogy with the rocks being lifted off your shoulders, that's what I felt walking down the back of the streets of San Antonio in the sun. A massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because I was suffering in silence. I was suffering. I didn't really know what to do. And thankfully I went in there, and on the other side of fear, what I found is faith. And when you have faith in yourself and the process, magic things can happen. So,
but that resistance you felt to that meeting, which had 5 people, and that's the example you use when you used to manage 400 or 500 people.
Yeah, couldn't speak.
You were sound, and then this meeting you went to with 5 people, you were terrified.
Couldn't speak for the vast majority of the meeting, and towards the back end of the meeting, I was able to say a little bit, and then that was the moment of, like you said, vulnerability and being comfortable.
Yeah.
I was part of the crew where it's all about your similarities, not your differences. Yeah. And we've all got the same story of ourselves, and we're all unique. Like I said to you on the train, there's only one thumbprint you've got, I've got, and that's it. That's all that's ever been and will be. There'll never be the same thumbprint again. But what you hear when it's a collective conversation and sharing of vulnerability and openness is stories. And that's a lot of what project's going to be based on what we're talking about and what you did on the intro, is hearing stories of people, human beings, and their story, their journey. What can we learn from that? And from me, I just learned, I'd been learning that when you step past fear, then on the other side, you'll be surprised at what could be waiting.
Yeah. On that stories thing as well, there's to digress, but still sticking with stories, is the stories that people have about themselves. We all have stories, whether a lot of them are usually from childhood. And like, for example, this is an example. I had a story that I couldn't concentrate, and I'm ADHD and all this stuff. I had this story about myself that I can't focus. Or what was it in school? I always had on my report card, Jacky is very intelligent but easily distracted, right?
Sounds similar.
Yeah, but you write this story about yourself, and that's the box that you put yourself in, like a label, right? And these stories carry you through. You can rewrite those stories as well. So people have stories about themselves that they can rewrite, but it depends. It depends if you've actually noticed that story is carrying you through life. Does it serve you? Does that story serve you, or does it do you a disservice? And if it does you a disservice, then you can change that story. It depends how much you want it. But on the back of that, you were talking about the 12-step program in NA, which obviously we'll talk about a lot on this project. But attachments and addiction is something we're going to talk about quite a lot, because I know you've got a bit of experience with that as well. I haven't done the program, but I've still got a bit of past with attachments to drugs and alcohol, especially through the years of my career as a DJ.
Yeah,
and the years running up to it, which kind of was me dealing with past trauma in the wrong ways.
Yeah. And
I know you know a lot more about this from the program, and every time you talk about it, I learn something new about how you guys talk about it in NA. And it's actually something I do. We spoke about it this morning. I want to go to an NA meeting. I want to go to an open meeting, and I want to see how it unfolds and how this conversation goes, because I hear snippets. I hear sound bites from a friend at the gym who was speaking to you this morning. I hear sound bites from you, but I want to see it. I want to see how these meetings are structured. Now, I saw they sent me a screenshot earlier, an hour and a half. I went, wow, there's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And what happens? What actually goes on in these meetings? I'm really interested to
Yeah,
know.
I mean, for me, one of the things that I share about quite often, and it's one thing that we used to do in the business as well, meetings and conversations and listening to people, what makes people tick, setting goals. That we did that for over 10 years. And a big part of my life was missing when that naturally came to an end. But in these meetings now that I find myself in, you're hearing of people from all walks of life, all over the world. No religions, no, it's not about your job title, what you've done, how much you've done, what you've got. None of that. It's just sat in a room collectively talking for an hour, like what we're doing now, or an hour and a half, and there's no phones, no laptop, no Netflix, no distractions. It's just listening to people, and it's the biggest amount of learning that I've been doing. And in 1 hour of being in one of them meetings and rooms is the equivalent of me sitting and watching a podcast for 12 hours, as an example, because the conversation will just flow, and because you're in the room like we're here now, the connectivity and the energy is just there, and the stories that you hear are unbelievable. There's so many different stories that inspire you and teach you, and also make you realise that that's you as well. And we're all the same, and in particular in the NA rooms, obviously there's a common similarities, hence the name. Narcotics Anonymous is, there's been struggles at times with using substances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you found that you must go to those meetings weekly? Do you have to go? Like, as in, do you feel you need it? Because
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked that, actually, to be fair, because somebody mentioned that recently. Somebody actually said to me, you've been going to the meetings for some time now. Like, you go often.
Yeah.
Why is that? And the analogy that I'd use to just try and explain, because you'd have to be in, and if you come to an open meeting, you'll see it for what it is. You'll understand. There's one in Ibiza on a Sunday, so when you come over with Eleanor, for sure, like I said, come down.
Definitely.
As I said before,
Yeah.
Come down on a Sunday and you'll see how amazing it is, and hearing them. And there's times you'll shed tear for sure when you hear the stories.
I can imagine.
The reason why I go is like one of the best cars on the planet right now that's always talked about is a Tesla. If you don't charge it, it ain't going nowhere. And for me, every time I go to a meeting, it's a recharge. It's just a moment of an hour where I juice up my batteries. And what I'm giving reference to there is to myself, to my soul, to me. I get so much value out of it. Like this conversation we're having now, in this very moment, I'm exactly where I need to be. I can feel the conversation flowing, and it's nice to talk to somebody and interact. But when you're sat in them rooms, it's about the journey you've been on. I've been through some dark places, as everybody at certain points have. But for me, when you're doing something that you don't necessarily know why you're doing it, and you're doing it to a detriment that's affecting you, to then be in a room sharing with people, you're not alone. So there's a togetherness, there's a unity, there's a community, and that's natural. It's been there since we've been human beings, tribal people, community, togetherness, and an openness to share, being vulnerable, being comfortable at being vulnerable. That happens in every single meeting. I know people in Madrid, Manchester, like I said, Cape Town, not Cape Town, sorry, the Cape Town meeting I was going to attend to, Zoom meetings that have been on, Dubai, and there's first name terms because it's anonymous, but there's, these people, I've got names and numbers in my phone, just a first name, and we reach out and just drop a message every now and then.
There's a community aspect to it as well,
global
which is
community,
so important. We were talking about that before we got here.
So that's why I go, recharge like a Tesla, recharge the batteries.
This episode is sponsored by Digital Ibiza Rentals, the go-to crew for all your needs in Ibiza. Digital have been the lead concierge service in Ibiza since 2016, and there's a pretty good reason for that too. It's not because they have lovely hair or because they're well-mannered lads. Actually, why are they the best?
It's in the script. They're paying us to say that.
Oh, awkward. Anyway, listen, if you go into Ibiza and you need yachts, villas, private transfers, car hire, club tickets, guest list, or even helicopters, Digital has you covered. And these guys specialise in DJ equipment and sound systems. Listeners of this show get 20% off their first use of the service.
Just quote Bear Chat on checkout and get 20% off.
So head over to their Instagram at Digital Ibiza Rentals or to their website, digitalibizarentals.com, and quote
Bear Chat
to get 20% off. By the way, invites to villa parties are welcomed. Nice one. That's I asked you that for a reason, because I feel the same about exercise for me now.
Yeah.
Sometimes my wife will, because we've got different goals and stuff, but sometimes my wife will go, "Oh, do you want to, should we do this on Saturday?" And I'm like, we can, but I'm going gym first. And she's a grafter in the gym. She hammers it. She's got in a really good place. She's super fit now, but I'm not just going to feel, I'm not going for aesthetic reasons. I'm going because it's medicine for me. I need to recharge. And I feel that if I don't go to the gym in the morning, or I don't go for that run or whatever it is, I don't want to get rid of that energy. I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
And I'm different with Eleanor. I'm different with myself. My mental language is, everything's different. And I'm not my best self. As cliche as that sounds, I'm my best self. I am not my best self if I haven't had that. And I feel like that could potentially be this. It sounds like it's the same for you. If you haven't gone and recharged those batteries for you, you're not the person you need to be, not just for yourself, but for Mish, for the people around you. You're not your best self because you haven't done what you need to do. That's your medicine. It is a medicine as well.
Absolutely. Some people give reference to that as well. Coincidentally, a meeting I was in this week, somebody said them very words, "This is my medicine." Yeah. So you hear that. And for me, as you know, you've known me now 8 years, like we said earlier, fitness, people used to always say to me in the business, what makes you tick? And for me, I would always say the fundamental 3 pillars, well, it's now 4, but it's always been 4, but I used to say the 3 Fs would be family.
I like this, yeah.
Friends and fitness. My family and friends, God willing, every single morning when I wake up, they're there, for now. Not always going to be there. No. So you got to appreciate and be grateful for that. And then my fitness is next. So the gym in the morning, working out habitually, the same in the business. I was relentless. It had to happen. I had to be in the gym in order to get the oxygen flowing through my system, to get the brain moving, to be thinking. You know, when you're responsible for you're managing 550 people with your business partners, I have a responsibility to Cam, to Stu. I have a responsibility to all the managers, Pi, all the rest of them guys. It's a big responsibility, and I have to live up to that responsibility. And the best way of kicking that off for me was going in the gym. And I just, like, even today when we was in the gym, you know, just, it's one of the facets of many things that add to me, like you said before, not in a cheesy way, but it is being the best version of me. Where I feel like the saying goes, you've got your finger on the pulse. I feel like I've got my finger on the pulse when I'm doing that. But for me, active, going on my bike, cycling around Ibiza, hiking, I'll take you on a ride. Take you on another ride.
No, I don't want to go on another one. That was brutal. Fucking hell, 40-odd-K. I was almost dead on the way back.
I just did the island recently. 130 kilometres. If you want to come.
Fuck that. If you've got loads of battery on that e-bike, I'll do it. Like, but not on a normal.
We'll do it. So all these elements add together. So I relate 100% with what you're saying, Jacky, and I've been there as well. You know, where I have to go to the gym, and that's fine for you, and it's fine for whatever it is that we're doing.
The thing I was talking about before was, I remembered who said it. It was Jordan Peterson who said, choose your suffering.
Yeah.
So I think before lockdowns, before 2020, my suffering was drinking drugs and self-indulgence in that way. That was my, so that, it wasn't. So that's, it's what we're talking about, the instant gratification, delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Okay. So I use the analogy of the person who is in front of a piece of cake and a full fat Coke. And then the person who's going to go to the gym. Okay. So you've got the person who is going to have the cake now is instant gratification. Right. And the person who's going to go to the gym is going to go and suffer straight away at the gym. So you choose your suffering. The person who eats the cake is going to suffer later from health problems. The person who goes to the gym is going to suffer instantly at the gym because they choose that suffering. You can choose your suffering. So that's what I meant by that. In terms of myself before and after the lockdown, I didn't have that release. I didn't have that channel I didn't have an area to channel that energy. Now, when I started to find exercise and health, I know people bang on about this all the time on podcasts, but I don't care. This has been such an important part and pivotal step for me, changing my life completely. I leaned into partying and the late nights and the afters and all that stuff. And when I found exercise, I felt that my mental I don't know how to say mental health, but my decision making and my intuition was more on point. So when I go to if I go to the gym in the morning and I get that out the way with it, and I've exerted that energy and I've faced adversity in the gym, whatever it was, I'm calmer. I'm so much more calmer. I can think better. I feel before 2020, because I wasn't exercising, I wasn't eating right, I was lost. And this is why I've come back to get to exercise being medicine. It really is. And it winds Eleanor up to no end because I fucking won't do anything unless I've been to the gym. But it improves everything. So we'll be talking a lot about that. And I want to actually speak to people from all walks of life, but I also want to speak to health experts. I want to speak to, neuroscientists. We talk about the guests. I don't want to just pigeonhole ourselves into music producers. We're going to get a lot of them on because that's kind of the background that we come from.
Yeah.
But I want to speak to everyone, and I really want to kind of hone in on the health and exercise.
Yeah, definitely. It's evolving right now as we speak. You look at the way that everything progresses. You look at some of the stuff that football teams are doing now. What Liverpool football team were doing. Klopp at one point was measuring his players off electronic devices. Everything's evolving. So getting guests on that are specialised in their field. I know recently a guy who stands out called Gary Brecker. He does a lot of stuff around the nutrients that your body might need and mapping that out.
The water in this
grounding,
jug is because of Gary Brecker. Right. So with water in this jug is from
Salute
is from my house, and we got the hydrogen and magnesium filter fitted on the house because of the Gary Brecker stuff.
Brilliant.
And it's amazing. Now we don't just drink, because we were using Brita filter for years, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You gotta fucking clean it. And now we've got it on the house, so you shower in it, you drink. This vessel is the only meat vessel we're going to have. Look after it, right? I feel like I never really considered any of this stuff when I was, going through airports and grabbing a Mackies and fucking then getting to the gigs and smashing tequila and all. I don't regret any of it, but none of this stuff even registered.
Nah.
It didn't register. I don't know, is this just a natural progression of, as you get older, you think about this stuff more because you're getting older? Do you think a lot of people go through this transition, or is it just the time that we're in that people are focusing more because we've got access to the social media? We've got all these influencers like Gary Brecker, who's going in and doing the research and then putting this out there for people to make their own decisions. But I feel access to information is increased 1,000-fold over the last 10 years. Do you think it's because of the information increase, or do you think it's because as you get older, this is just a natural progression?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think as you get older, that natural progression, I think, has been there for a long time.
Okay.
For a lot of people, and I heard somebody actually mention that recently. Now, Roger Sanchez actually said it on a clip that I showed you earlier.
Oh yeah.
Saying that as I'm getting older, is the term that he used. As I'm getting older, I'm more conscious of the things that I eat, and I think he mentioned sugar. But anyway, I think that definitely that's naturally been there. But I think now our scope of access for information. You have a phone in your pocket, you just click it.
Supercomputer.
You've got podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you've got Google Podcasts, you've got YouTube. There's just so much there, which is fantastic. So I think that a lot of people now are educating themselves at a rate that they never did before. And I think that when you've got these podcasts that are getting guests on and the subject matter they're talking about that they're well educated and versed in, and they're coming up with pioneering ideas and different ways of doing and seeing things. We're at a time now where you can get access to that. Like you said, Gary Brecker in this glass here now and in your house is from that education and that access to that information. So I think it's a mixture of both. I think that's always been there, like I said, but now we've got access to more for sure.
I want to discuss the other side of that coin as well, though. And I mentioned it before we get on the train. Do you remember what I said about the AirPods?
Yes.
And I think that there's something to be said about that, because I've noticed myself missing stuff walking down the street and maybe some, just not being in tune with life, daily life, because I'm always zoned out by choice. I put my AirPods in the morning when I go to the gym. I'm completely oblivious to anything going around me. I listen to podcasts a lot. So you're educating yourself quite a lot, but then I also then on a night will take my AirPods out, maybe to have dinner, then I'll go and have a shower. And I have a backlog of thoughts that I haven't processed or dealt with. Yeah. And sometimes I can get overwhelmed from that. So I'm not dealing with anything that's maybe happened at work, because as soon as I've finished a work call, I'll go make a coffee, put my AirPods in to make a coffee. I'll take Luna for a walk. I'll put my AirPods in to go for a walk. I'm always obviously trying to educate myself, but it's a distraction in a way. So there's a catch-22 there. What is that balance? Is there a balance? Am I trying to listen to too much? Is it too much? I don't know. Yeah,
I think, again, I think it's got to go back to yourself, really, and where you're at. And I'll give you an example. For me, everybody knows, even back at the office, and my mum, she always laughing with my brother going, he's always got music playing. I'll take a speaker into the bathroom with me and I've got tunes playing.
Yeah.
In the office, we had tunes playing.
I know you did.
In the gym, headphones on.
Yeah.
Cycling, I've got my headphones on. Hiking, I've got my headphones on. And that's been me for the past 20 years.
20 years?
20 years, wow, yeah. Okay. Always got headphones in the gym.
You were on a fucking Walkman then, a tape Walkman?
Yeah, I had a Walkman, and Iowa Walkman.
Oh, right, yeah.
Little tap touch one with wired headphones. Back then we had a pager as well. There were no mobile phones. You used to page your mate, BT pager. Gives a ring. But anyway, yeah, I've always had headphones in, and only since this journey of investment in the self, real personal development stuff I've been doing, and I've been gifted with the space and time to do that over the past couple of years, and obviously going through therapy, working on the self, building the self, and understanding me. I was, and that shows how much of a stranger to myself I was. And I took my headphones out. I'd go on a hike, no headphones in. Go on my bike, no headphones in. Thankfully, the gym I go to in Ibiza's got really good tunes playing in the background, so no headphones in.
Yeah.
And you hear so much more.
Okay,
and I'm
exactly.
able to just, like you said before, and you're exactly right with your own analysis of letting them thoughts come through. You're not distracted, or you're not clipping a tune that's on your SoundCloud to send to your mate on WhatsApp, and your thoughts are being diverted everywhere else. And I've found another thing that works for me on my journey of recovery and the path that I'm on is going for a hike on my own and just listening to the wind blow through the pine trees in the hills, hearing the birds sing, and standing for a moment. There's certain pockets and places I can go to where it's that silent. I can hear my own ears ringing because I ain't got no headphones in. And it's like open active eye meditation is what I would say. You're just connected to your environment. And if you think for 95% of our time on this planet, we didn't have Bose headphones.
Exactly. That's
AirPods.
That's what I'm thinking.
iPhones, music in general.
Yeah.
You know, when we talked about it on the last show, you know,
Oh, yeah. Tribal.
Just that
All the
drum.
beat. Yeah.
Music is always been a massive part of us as humans, but electronic devices and electronic music per se is not obviously always been there. So there is an element to us enjoying that. But when you're out in nature for 95% of our time on this planet, that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I completely resonate there with the hiking that you did without the headphones, because I got to a point, it was last year, or the start of this year when I was training for the marathon, didn't do it in the end, and will do one day, but because of my hip issues. But I was going on a run. I said every time I run now, because I was running far, I was doing 15, 20k, 25k. I'm not going to use my AirPods. If I go to the gym, use your AirPods. If you're going to go for a run, you've got to be on your own with your thoughts, because there'll be points in there where you need to deal with some shit and not be. I don't want to be distracted by someone on a podcast. I need to be dealing with this and not help. But I'm not running anymore, so now I feel like I've reverted back. And I also think I was worrying about not because I come up with ideas when I've not got shit in my ears, right? So I was potentially thinking I was holding myself back in the business. I've got 4 businesses and now the podcast. I was holding myself back in business and even personal life because I'm not coming up with anything new, because I'm just listening to other people's ideas. So I'm not giving myself time to breathe, to think about new ideas, to come up with new ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm conscious of that now, so I'm gonna work on that, and I might do even a little experiment with this as we go on the podcast and just try it out.
I like what you just said there as well. You didn't realise you even said it.
What?
I'm coming up with ideas when I've not got shit in my ears.
New slogan.
I love it. I'm coming up with ideas when I've not got shit in my ears. Write that one down.
Well, yeah, the exercise thing we talked about for quite some time, but like routine is something we're going to talk about on this podcast, because that's helped us massively.
For sure.
And that's probably come out the back of the NA meetings. I know you've talked about routine
Big time.
nauseum. So routine is massive, and it's helped me incredibly. Routine. And yes, we were talking about successful traits of successful people, you know. I've the last 3, what we're on to 2024 now, the last 4 years since the lockdowns up to now, you know, I never really read any books, and trying to pick out, you know, you can't do everything. You've got to try and find what works for you. And I do try to do everything. You know, you read a book and you're like, I'm going to do everything in this book. And then you start another book the week after and you're like, you've fucking left 90% of that already, and you're trying to do something new. And I've noticed myself doing that, but trying to pick out the successful traits of successful people and try and implement that in my own life has been really, really valuable for me. Especially like the getting up early, getting to the gym to start the day, get the blood flowing, walks, grounding, getting on the grass with bare feet. First light, you know, all the Huberman stuff. You know, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, well, that's it's mad, isn't it? Because again, it's all the moments, and I've found that going back to what you said before, as I'm getting older, you know, your awareness, your understanding of the simple things, you know, the basic things, you know. And again, you know, I had the conversation recently. You got to think that there's a big portion of time where we didn't have an alarm clock.
I know.
It was just
the sun.
And then at night, you know, the tribals people that live one of them that I'll mention is the Panan that live in Borneo, amongst one of the last hunter-gatherers on the planet. They know it's time to go to bed when the cicadas start making a sound in the evening. That's their sound for bed.
Yeah.
So, we've not always had that alarm clock and stuff. So doing all the stuff that's very, we can call human, gives you a lot. When I go for a walk on the beach down close by me, barefoot on the evening, watching the sun go down, it's that moment of, you're just there and you're just doing your thing. But there's a connection that you just get it if you're there, and you feel a source of energy, wisdom, whatever it is you want to call it, nourishing, and it allows you to be with your thoughts and just be. A lot of the time we're not, Netflix will fire the next series at you when you're watching it, and it's set up in a way where you're going to be watching more of it. And as an example, that's what I'm saying. So this thing that we're now doing, which is all great. Listen, I'm not saying anything that's negative about any of that, but when you go back, for me, what I've found on this path of recovery and this path of self-development, it's them little pockets of simple things that give me so much. So yeah, definitely there's like what you're saying with the grounding and stuff, that's there, and it helps.
The routine has been incredibly important for me, even to the point where Eleanor went away last week. She was in Ibiza, actually. She caught up with you, didn't she, last week?
La Paloma. Big up.
Oh,
first time we've been. Unbelievable.
So jealous, yeah. La Paloma, I'll be there in August. But she was away for 6 days. Now, obviously, before she actually spun it on me, because before, I'd be on tour sometimes for 4 to 6 weeks. I'd go to Australia, New Zealand, Bali. I'd be away.
Yeah.
And she was going away. And obviously, since lockdowns, we've just been at home together. We've got this routine. We get up, we go to the gym together. We meditate together. We do everything on in the morning. The routine's the same. So when she went away, I actually said, I don't want to sleep in our bed. I sleep in your bedroom when she's away, because it also, the routine of us going to bed together, we do the routine before we go to bed, and in the morning we get up together with Luna's in the bed, and that routine's important to me.
Yeah.
And breaking that cycle, I actually can't sleep in that bed if Eleanor's not there. I don't sleep as well if Eleanor's not there.
Yeah.
It's almost like rewired my brain into like, this is the routine and this is where you feel comfortable. And that's obviously what our brains do, right?
Yeah.
This is also the source of bad habits. So you're in a bad habit loop. That's exactly the same as me getting in a good habit loop. It's good habits and bad habits. The brain doesn't know any different. They just know what's habitual. This is what I do. I go to the club. I go to the after party. I do the gear. I'm always the party guy. That's the habit. Or you change the habit. Or I go to bed at 9 o'clock and get up at 5. All that stuff. They're just different actions. But what I was going to say, I was talking about routine, and found that's been crucial. And that's what I was trying to say, is that the little things that really matter the most. Like, there'll be moments where Ellen and I'll get back from work and we'll go and sit out in the garden and we'll have dinner, and we've took Luna for a walk and we're sat in our beautiful home, and I'm like, if nothing else in life happened, if this was just our routine, I do something that I enjoy doing for work. I love the businesses. I love my business partners I work with. I've got a beautiful wife, a gorgeous house. I said, I don't need anything else. I actually don't need anything else. There's no more wealth that can bring me any more happiness than I've already got now. The routine that I've got that makes me happy, that makes me feel good, I feel fulfilled. I said to Eleanor, if we didn't make any more money, or it's so irrelevant to me now, what the routine that we've got and the things that we have and the home that we've managed to create, I'd be happy if nothing changed.
Yeah.
I feel so grateful for that.
Do you mind if I ask you a question on that? Because I've just thought of something where you've been saying it, because obviously I've known you for some time.
Go on.
Now, let's think of the career that you built, in as a DJ.
Yeah.
And I watched you from afar early on.
Yeah.
Not from the very beginning, but when I seen you was working very hard.
Well, relatively early.
Yeah, you was working very, very hard, and there was time away from your wife. At the time you engaged, and then you was married, I think it was. But anyway, you was away, as you just said then, when you were touring, you was away for how long?
Sometimes 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yeah,
so away. So you think of that element now when you're in bed at home, you can't even sleep in the bed without element.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, sorry, I digressed quite a lot.
That's fine. So the question that I'm going to ask you is, you mentioned about earlier with lockdown and reading books and having that time. If lockdown didn't happen, do you reckon you would have caught that moment that you just mentioned then? Or do you think
I wouldn't be sat
it would have
here,
been later on?
Obviously, nothing would have happened
Yeah.
severely different. I mean, I would have still been touring now,
Yeah.
probably, in a bad place. I don't know. I have no idea. But the route, what I was trying to say, which is what you're touching on, is Eleanor was away for 6 days.
Yeah.
It was fucking weird.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said to me, because I said, I was texting her 2 or 3 days before you were getting back, going, I can't wait to see you. She's like, this is how I felt for 6 years. Because I was away every weekend. Even if it was local, I'd be away from the Friday. She'd go to work on the Friday. I wouldn't see her till the Sunday.
Yeah.
That's minimum, right? Sometimes Monday, but 4 to 6 weeks.
That's what I'm saying. It's a long time.
Yeah. And she would just be on her own. And I honestly, I have no fucking idea how she's done it.
Yeah, and you guys were making it work, you know.
Yeah,
you
we
come
were.
you come and stayed at ours one time, remember, and you was doing a gig, and it was towards the back end of you kind of finishing your career. But for me, the reason I asked you that question, Jacky, is because during that period of lockdown, there's a lot of stories that come out the back of that as well. And I think for me, as someone who's a friend and knows you, but from afar, you know, you worked a very long time. When you told your friends you was going to be a DJ working in an Apple store, people laughed at you.
Yeah.
And you got to that point where you were signed to Defected, you're producing tracks with Roger Sanchez. You know, we know who that guy is, I know who that guy is. And to that level, and to then just stand back and say, hang on a second, and have that rethink. So what you were saying before about the headphones, you had your DJ headphones on.
Yeah.
How did you have an idea? It's only when you took them headphones off during a lockdown period,
Such a good analogy.
you was able to have an idea. And for me, I've seen you as a person. I can see you coming to your authentic self, your true self. And when we was in the gym working out this morning, I'm rewinding back to when you're at El Row and you come into the office before you're playing at Sankey's and Pies going, yeah, come in the office, play a set, and you're dropping a Michael Jackson remix that you'd messed around with, I think, from memory. And I'm like, yeah. And then we're in the gym doing circuits and you're punishing me in the morning doing pull-ups. And I'm thinking, I love life.
Yeah.
You know, and
So
here's an
it's
example. So that's why I'm excited about this project and excited to see where it goes. And obviously we've talked about some books and we're going to touch over some stuff now in a second. But for me, I'm looking forward to the discussions that are going to be having and some of your books and things that you've read. And same for me, you know, I've started to read heavily over the past 10 years now, more so in the past 5 years, should I say. But when I was at school, very, very similar to yourself, Jacky, my report had come back. Great kid, super bright, easily distracted.
Yeah.
And one teacher in particular at one point actually said to me in front of everybody that you're going to amount to nothing, which really stuck with me. But anyway, it was something that helped to kind of drive me to a degree, but we'll brush over that again at another time. But very, very similar. Spinning 100 things at once. Recently been diagnosed officially by my psychiatrist with ADHD. So I know that when I'm interested in stuff and these books and things and podcasts that I listen to, when I'm interested in the subject matter, I can just get engrossed in it. So yeah, the books and stuff that are going to be coming up and that we're going to be talking about and kind of brushing over, you know, I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the reading side of things was something that I'd never considered until we stopped and I took the headphones off. Right, that's a really good analogy. I like that.
You said it.
Yeah. Well, but you.
And then you had a what is it?
Epiphany.
Yeah, epiphany. But I could only have an idea when I had no shit in my ear. Yeah, no shit. Something like that. But anyway, it's sticking there. It's sticking.
Yeah, but I never read anything from the age of. Well, I read maybe one book. Remember when I was playing in Tokyo and I was maybe 28, 29. And I bought I think it's Sarah Knight, Get Your Shit Together.
Right.
I bought it at the airport at Heathrow or something, and it took me about 3 months to read it. And I hadn't read a book before then. The last time I read a book before then was probably when I was like 21, when I was at uni, or 22.
Right.
So when lockdown happened, I didn't have anything else to do, so I started doing exercise. I was doing the Joe Wicks, the 90-day.
That's right.
Yeah, I was doing the Joe Wicks in the 20-minute thing in the living room.
See that one?
What?
See that one where he let her rip her off?
Yeah, it was fucking, Eleanor was talking about that last week, actually. It's fucking class, isn't it?
Sorry, I had to mention that. It's so
He didn't
funny.
even think it was the camera on, did he? He was just trying to get a fart out before
lethal. It was absolutely lethal.
Big up Joe, lad.
Yeah.
So reading has been a massive part of my development, and there was quite a lot of resistance when I started, and Eleanor was saying maybe read a novel, read something not so serious, something that's interesting. I'm not really a novel guy. I need to try it again, but I wasn't a novel guy, so I've read so much non-fiction, and it's been incredible for me. Audiobooks don't really resonate with me, but books in general, I would say my top 3 books of the last 4 years, I would say would be I May Be Wrong. I can't remember. It's a Swedish guy. Right. He used to be a forest monk.
Okay.
He got a diagnosis of terminal cancer, and he lived his life out as a monk. But I May Be Wrong is, even if you know you're right, sometimes you need to have that notion definitely. That you might be wrong. Actually, almost see it from their angle. See and things that you think of a certain way and always the way you think they are, and that was a really good one for me. The one was the 5 a.m. Club, which is a no-brainer. Yeah. That was I think it was the first book I bought on my Kindle. It was the 5 a.m. Club, and I read it through, and I passed it to Eleanor, and Eleanor read it, and then a week later we've been getting up at 5. Yeah. We're talking like 2020, maybe Jan 21. Yeah. Been doing 5 a.m. Club since then. It's been sort of pivotal in my productivity and the amount of shit I'm getting done. And I know this is probably, I don't know if this is an ego thing, but knowing that you're up when other people aren't up, when you're getting up and getting after it, is fucking mint. I like the feeling that, especially when it's dark nights, you get up, dark mornings, whatever, in the winter, and you get up and it's freezing, and you go out in the fucking plunge pool, and you get in the plunge pool, and you get back in, and you know that you've done that when loads of people are still in bed for the 2 hours. There's something about that gives you fire, So that came from that book. And then the last one, I wrote 3 down. Did I write 3 down? I May Be Wrong, 5 a.m. Club, and I can't say it. That's why I'm looking at it weird. Ikigai. The secret, the Japanese secret to long life, the long and happy life.
Yeah, not read it.
You haven't read it?
I know the book. I know the 5 a.m. Club as well. Not read it.
Well, you got to read those 3 books now.
Yeah.
What are yours 3?
My 3 books of all time. Well, currently, obviously, The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho, is it's always been there. I read the book about 15 years ago. And my next favourite book, which is very close, is by Dr. Gabor Mate, quite recent book that was released, I think, last year or the year before now. The Myth of Normal.
I never heard of that until this morning.
Trauma, healing in a toxic culture. It's basically his life's work as a physician, working initially in the palliative care department in an hospital in Toronto, and the things that he's seen. And it's basically, I'm not going to disclose too much, but you need to read it. It encapsulates a lot of stuff, addiction, trauma, the things that affect us as human beings, discussing how we're even born in the modern day now. It's very much not the way it was for hundreds of thousands of years. Bright lights, metallic silver metal, cleansing products. It wasn't always like that. So it's a really good book. It's got so much stuff in there. But it's basically his life's work, and his son, Daniel Mate, wrote the book with him and assisted writing it with him, and he put a lot into it. So that's the second book. Nice. And the third book for me is by a guy called Dr. Deepak Chopra, and it's called The Book of Secrets.
The Book of Secrets.
Yeah. And again, it touches over, yourself, awareness of the self, but then the universe as a whole, energy, matter, all them kinds of things. It's got some interesting topics of discussion within that book. But when I read the book, it just really, really resonated the whole way. When I was reading it, it was like, wow. And then obviously I have my recent NA literature, which are very close to my heart, but books as in, walk into Waterstones and pick the book up. Them 3 books in particular for me are my favourite books.
Nice. Yeah. We're going to do an exchange.
Book exchange.
We're going to do a feature on the podcast as well, right?
Yeah.
So, how we decide we're going to call it? We're going to call it Bear Books.
Bear Books. That's what
Bear Books.
I think it's right.
Bear Chat, Bear Books. That makes sense.
We can evolve and change, but I think Bear Books goes with it. Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to, every episode, the previous, and it's kind of inspired by Steve Bartlett. I'm not going to lie. There's a mixture, but the importance of books is vital as far as I'm concerned, for growth for sure, and the idea of giving as well, keeping that vacuum open, giving and receiving. So the previous guest will be leaving a book for the next guest, not knowing who they are, and they've also got to leave a line in there as to why they're leaving that book and why they should read that book. So the next guest, no one knows, but obviously that's the first one. So we'll decide between us what that book is, and we're going to be. Yeah, have you mentioned guests? So we touched on a little bit. It's not just going to be you and me. We're going to be getting numerous guests on here. We've got several already locked in. Yep. A few ideas.
Yeah, and see where we're going with progress. But like you were saying at the beginning, it's not just locked into any area. It's everything as a whole. Our journey, our story, whatever that might be, and an ability for us to sit and listen and ask questions, and for the listeners to engage. And if there's anything that they can take out of the back of this that collectively helps us all, if there's anybody who messages in with suggestions or help and comments and things, all about that, and sitting here and listening to the guest and understanding their journey is exactly what happens when I attend meetings in the fellowship, for sure. But even this conversation today, again, the conversation we had on the train getting here, to the conversation about understanding what the name's going to be.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean? But I think that the book, passing the book on, again, it goes back to
pass the book.
Ah,
right, that's way better than bare book.
Yeah, are you passing the book?
Pass the book.
I'm passing it on. Pay
it forward.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But it's again, books is an old school way.
Yeah.
In it, do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
A lot of people have Kindles, people have audio books, all that kind of thing, and it goes back to what you said before, not having having ideas when you've got shit in your ears.
Yeah.
When you've got a book in front of you and you sit and read it. And I've found that when you engage with the book, it's old school. It's old school. So I think it's wicked. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. The main thing for me on this project is I want to create value. I want to create value for us, and I want to create value for the listeners. I want to create value for the guests. I want to just create value for all round.
Yeah. Well, as an example, real quick, the 3 books you've suggested I have not read.
Yeah.
And the 3 books I've suggested, apart from The Alchemist.
I haven't read the other 2.
You've not read.
I've got them down.
Yeah.
I'm going to get them straight
And I have
away.
another book I can recommend called Lost Connections by Johan Hari, which I know you'll love. So they're the 3 that I'll pass to you, yeah? Look at that. 3 books to learn. So I'm going to get them. I'm going to take them back with me on the plane. I'm going to start reading them. So that's just from me and you today. Yeah. So let's see where it goes, and what books are guests going to bring up that we've not heard of.
No, absolutely.
So it's learning. Yeah.
Learning, and we want people who are listening to learn, and we want, like, just to touch on what you said earlier as well, we want to connect with people. We want people to connect with us. We don't want this to be a closed project.
No,
we want this to be a community vibe. One thing we didn't talk about today was community.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest in that Ikigai book. That's what they touch on, is the sense of purpose, and the community is one of the biggest factors of longevity in life. We want to create a community with this project, so we're going to be introducing, whether that's open discussions with an audience or whatever. We've got loads of ideas we're going to go through, but let's not go into that now. I think that's enough for today.
Enough, yeah.
Anything we didn't cover you wanted to mention?
No. We touched everything. Cool. Yeah, books. We've got stuff coming up. Obviously, we're going to be bringing some statistics in from various things that we're researching. Obviously, I'm studying currently, so there's a lot of things with subject matter that's close to my heart that's nice to share and get out there. And with these books and the podcast and the project as a whole, like what we said before, the key is that investment of time with no distractions.
Absolutely. Just
locked in, bare chat, bare conversation, bare books, bare gifts, bare learning, bare community. Where we're going to go with that. Yeah. And for me, that's what I love. That's what I found when I walked into a room and I felt lost and I felt alone. I found a community, and there's something very human in that. And if we can connect with our audience and our listeners, if it just helps somebody, just one person, fine,
worth it.
But if it just helps somebody just change direction by that centimetre I was talking about on the train, progress, not perfection. If you just make a shift by that 1 centimetre, if we can do that, then and for ourselves at the same time, it's the, like you said, you call it the vacuum, the giving and receiving.
Yeah.
Something very innate in that, something very human. So let's see where we go with it. Looking forward to it.
All right, bro, let's do it.
Big love.
Nice one.
Okay.